All right, y'all. Hey, hey, hey. So today we're in the second to the last chapter of Matthew's. I can't believe it's over already. Um, but the breakdown of Matthew's 27 chapter context. Matthew's 27 begins with the official meeting of the Jewish ruling council. They affirm Jesus' condemnation from the previous night, described in chapter 26. Judas confesses his betrayal and hangs himself. Pilate tries to release Jesus, but the mob shouts for Jesus to be crucified. Man, forget all of them. Jesus is humiliated by Roman soldiers and marched to be exiled. On the cross, he is mocked by Jewish religious leaders and others. He dies and is buried in a never used tomb. Extensive efforts to secure his body from being stolen only serve to prove the miraculous nature of his resurrection, which is detailed in chapter 28. Okay, so let me break this down. Part one. So y'all need to sit down at the desk. Matthew's 27 details the trial, crucifixion, death, and burial of Jesus Christ, focusing on themes of betrayal, guilt, suffering, and the ultimate sacrifice for humanity's redemption. It presents Jesus' innocence before Pilate. I hope I'm saying that right. Pilate. Judas' remorse and suicide, the crowd's rejection, Jesus' painful crucifixion and death, and his burial in a guarded tomb, which fulfilled Old Testament prophecies and forms a central pillar of the Christian faith. So let me break this down. Betrayal and remorse. Judas Iscariot's betrayal. The chapter begins with the account of Judas betraying Jesus for 30 pieces of silver. Sit down at that desk now. Remorse and suicide. Judas, filled with remorse, attempts to return the money but is unsuccessful. He then hangs himself. The potter's field. The 30 pieces of silver are used to purchase a potter's field as a burial place for strangers, fulfilling a prophecy from Zechariah. So next we have the trial and condemnation. Jesus before Pilate. The Jewish religious had Jesus over to Pontius Pilate, the Roman governor, for sentencing, innocence, and acquittal attempts. Pilate finds no fault in Jesus, but is pressured by the crowd and religious leaders to condemn him. The choice of Barabbas. The crowd is giving a choice between releasing Barabbas, a known criminal, or Jesus. They demanded Barabbas' release and Jesus' crucifixion. The nerve. Okay, so the crucifixion, mockery and suffering. Jesus is stripped, clothed as a mock king, given a crown of thorns, and mocked by Roman soldiers before being led to his crucifixion. Crucifixion at Golgotha. Jesus is crucified with two thieves on either side. That's crazy. Darkness and Jesus' cry. A darkness covers the land for 3 hours, and Jesus cries out, my God, why have you forsaken me?" Death and burial. Hey, relax. Jesus dies. After Jesus gives up his spirit, the veil of the temple is torn. The earth shakes and rocks split, signifying a powerful divine reaction to his death. Joseph of Arimathea. A rich follower, Joseph, asks Pilate for Jesus' body to bury it in its own new tomb, securing the tomb. The religious leaders, still fearful of Jesus' power, asked Pilate to set up a guard and seal the tomb to prevent the disciples from stealing the body and claiming a resurrection. They did everything to keep him down. That's crazy. He still got up. Okay, so part 2 of this breakdown. The event of Matthew 27 all takes place in a single exhausting day during which the Son of God will die. The council that condemned Jesus the night before had not followed official procedure. Part of their error was not passing a death sentence during the day. To meet the letter of the law, they met once more after sunrise to make it official. Jesus is tied up and marched over to the Roman governor Pontius Pilate, I think that's how you pronounce his name. The Jewish religious leaders need him to sentence Jesus to death since they did not have authority to do so on their own. Matthew 27, 1-2. Meanwhile, Judas has changed his mind. Where he hears that Jesus has been condemned, he takes the 30 pieces of silver back to the leader who paid him to betray Jesus. He admits that Jesus is innocent, but they do not care. He admits Jesus' enemies are certainly not going to admit that they've bribed anyone. Judas helplessly throws the money down and leaves to commit suicide. The chief priests and elders use money to buy a field. They use the money to buy a field for burying foreigners in Israel. Matthew 27, 3-10. Pilate asks Jesus directly if he is the king of the Jews. Jesus affirms, "You have said so." Other than this, Jesus has little to say in his own defense. John's account adds details showing how Pilate investigates Jesus' claim to be king and finds them harmless. John 18, 33-38. Jewish religious leaders heap accusation on Christ, attempting to secure a death sentence. Pilate is amazed that Jesus won't answer. In part, he might hope Jesus will dispute the charges enough to convict the religious leaders of deceit. Jesus knows that this would be pointless and says almost nothing. Matthew 27, 11-14. It was custom for Pilate to release a prisoner to the people at Passover every year. This is likely an attempt to outmaneuver the manipulating religious leaders. Part of Pilate's caution might be superstition, as his wife warns about a dream she had. Pilate assumes the people will rather see a controversial teacher be set free rather than a convicted murderer. He has not found anything to charge Jesus with, and he knows that the Jewish religious leaders want Jesus killed out of envy and not because of any legitimate crime against Rome. Offering a confirmed insurrectionists would strain their claims against Jesus. He does not realize the mob is being directed by Jesus' enemies. Matthew 27, 15-20. The Roman governor gives a crowd choice: Jesus or Barabbas. Spurred on by Jerusalem religious leaders, they shout for Barabbas to be released and for Jesus to be crucified. Hold on. Pilate finally gives into this pressure. Though he does not believe Jesus is guilty. In a pointless attempt to avoid responsibility for Jesus' death, he symbolically washes his hands. The frenzied mob, coached by Jerusalem leader, carelessly brush off the seriousness of what is happening. Jesus is viciously humiliated by Roman soldiers, beaten again, and taken away to be crucified. And that's Matthew 27, 21-23. Come back for part 2.